Book 1, Chapter 14. That the Romans interpreted the Auspices to meet the occasion, and made a prudent show of observing rites of religion, even when forced to disregard them, and any who rashly slighted religion they punished. Auguries were not only, as we have shown above, a main foundation of the old religion of the Gentiles, but were also the cause of the prosperity of the Roman Commonwealth. Accordingly, the Romans gave more heed to these than to any other of their observances, resorting to them in their consular comitia, in undertaking new enterprises, in calling out their armies, in going into battle, and, in short, in every business of importance, whether civil or military. Nor would they ever set forth on any warlike expedition until they had satisfied their soldiers that the gods had promised them victory. Among other means of declaring the auguries, they had in their armies a class of soothsayers, named by them Pullarii, whom, when they desired to give battle, they would ask to take the auspices, which they did by observing the behavior of fowls. If the fowls pecked, the engagement was begun with a favorable omen. If they refused, battle was declined. Nevertheless, when it was plain on the face of it that a certain course had to be taken, they would take it at all hazards, even though the auspices were adverse, contriving, however, to manage matters so adroitly as not to appear to throw any slight on religion, as was done by the consul Papirius in the great battle he fought with the Samnites, wherein that nation was finally broken and overthrown. For Papirius, being encamped over against the Samnites, and perceiving that if he fought, victory was certain, and consequently being eager to engage, desired the omens to be taken. The fowls refused to peck, but the chief soothsayer, observing the eagerness of the soldiers to fight, and the confidence felt both by them and by their captain, not to deprive the army of such an opportunity of glory, reported to the consul that the auspices were favorable, whereupon Papirius began to array his army for battle. But some among the soothsayers, having divulged to certain of the soldiers that the fowls had not pecked, this was told to Spurius Papirius, the nephew of the consul, who reported it to his uncle. The latter straightway bade him mind his own business, for that so far as he himself and the army were concerned, the auspices were fair, and if the soothsayer had lied, the consequences were on his head, and that the event might accord with the prognostics, he commanded his officers to place the soothsayers in the front of the battle. It so chanced that as they advanced against the enemy, the chief soothsayer was killed by a spear thrown by a Roman soldier, which, the consul hearing of, said, "All goes well, and as the gods would have it, for by the death of this liar the army is purged of blame and absolved from whatever displeasure these may have conceived against it." And contriving, in this way, to make his designs tally with the auspices, he joined battle, without the army knowing that the ordinances of religion had in any degree been disregarded. But an opposite course was taken by Appius Pulcher in Sicily in the first Carthaginian war. For desiring to join battle, he bade the soothsayers take the auspices, and on their announcing that the fowls refused to feed, he answered, "Let us see, then, whether they will drink," and so saying, caused them to be thrown into the sea, after which he fought and was defeated. For this he was condemned at Rome, while Papirius was honored, not so much because the one had gained while the other had lost a battle, as because in their treatment of the auspices the one had behaved discreetly, the other with rashness. And in truth, the sole object of this system of taking the auspices was to ensure the army joining battle with that confidence of success which constantly leads to victory, a device followed not by the Romans only, but by foreign nations as well, of which I shall give an example in the following chapter.